Good morning, Yogyakarta! Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the first and the largest virtual showcase and community activation of high impact innovation and technology in Yogyakarta. Welcome back to innoXjogja, day 3, everyone. Hope you are doing well and hope you're having a great day and a great session will be start. It's organized by Block 71 Yogyakarta and in partner with NUS Enterprise and Innovation Factory. For all the viewers that haven't known me for these 2 days, let me introduce myself again. My name is Rizky Ramadan. I am the community manager of Block 71 Bandung. And just like previous session, I will be the host and I will accompany you all the day and also for the next day. All right, before I pass to the moderator for the first session, I would like to thank you to all of our partners, the Yogyakarta Startup Incubators, which is Jogja Digital Valley, Dilo Jogja, Sentrino UKDW, Visipol UGM Creative Hub, IBISMA UII, Amicom Business Park Startup Incubator ABP, and Innovative Academy. Our government partner, Dinas Komunikasi dan Informatika Daerah Istimewa Yogyakarta. Our official partners, AWS, Ruang Kerja and Skill Academy by Ruang Guru, and also our supporting partners, Bukit Asam, Certiva, Niaga Hoster, and GM Production. And don't forget, also thank you to all of our sponsor, TINC from Telkomsel. And everyone, viewers, let me remind you to all the audience to check out the Jogja Tech Map and add to the map if you are not there. Especially for the startup viewers, don't forget to add your name, to add your companies there so you can get known in our Jogja Tech Map. And again, I want also to remind to all the participants of innoXjogja, please check out the innoXjogja platforms. You can check the virtual booth, have a networking with all the participants, such as startups, incubator, VCs, and also corporates. And another one, don't forget to follow our Instagram at innoXjogja. All right, okay, let's get started. In this session, in this first panel session, we are going to have a discussion about what will it take to build Southeast Asia deep tech community. With our moderator, Michael Blakey, the managing partner of Cocoon Capital, and our panelists, Irene Cheong, the director of industry liaison officer of NUS, Siddharth Jadhav, the CEO and founder of Polybee, and Alwy Herfian, the co-founder of Widya Group. All right, for no further ado, please welcome our moderator, Michael Blakey.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Nikki. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today and to be moderating such an esteemed panel. Just to give a bit of background on myself, as Nikki mentioned, I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Cocoon Capital. We're an early stage seed fund that focuses on deep tech and enterprise tech companies across Southeast Asia. I've been in the industry now for 20 years, and just over 20 years ago, when I made my first investment, it was into a robotics company that we then sold on to GE. So it's been an area, deep tech, that I've been very passionate about for many, many years. So I think that's enough about myself. I would love now to introduce you in their own words to the panel. So Irene, do you mind just saying a few words about yourself and your background, please?
Yeah, happy to do that, Michael. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I am so happy to be part of this very exciting platform and conference. So hi, everyone. My name is Irene Cheong. I'm the director of the Industry Liaison Office at the National University of Singapore. So in a nutshell, what we do is we are the Technology Commercialization Office for the university. And for those of you who may be less familiar with NUS, National University of Singapore, we are the oldest university in Singapore. We are, I think at last count, 115 years old. We have about 38,000 students that come through our gates every year. And so at my office, we do very simple things. We help our students and our staff commercialize the technologies they work on. So I have the privilege of interacting with super, super smart, really fun people to help them to do technology development and help them spin off companies using the very best talent as well as the very best technologies from our university. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. I appreciate that. Alwy, could you give a little brief introduction yourself, please?
Okay, thank you, Michael. So nice to meet all of you. And then my name is Alwy, And then now I am building the Widya groups in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. And Widya group consists of 7 companies. And maybe you have heard 2 of them, like a Widya Bicara, that already have been reviewed by one of the best YouTuber in Indonesia yesterday. And then also Widya EduTech. So I am a graduate from Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta. My office in Jogja, but my marketing office in Jakarta. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much for that, Alwy. Siddharth, could you give a brief introduction of yourself as well, please?
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. Delighted to be here. Just a quick introduction on myself. I'm Siddharth Jadhav, founder and CEO of this company called Polybee. We are a spin-off from the National University of Singapore as well. And what we're doing is building autonomous drones for pollination. And it's because, it's pollination is a process which has been largely left to chance. And it's quite surprising how critical it is to such a broad spectrum of crops, which are very essential to our economy. And we've realized that there are certain sectors in agriculture where this problem is extremely urgent. And these sectors also happen to be very critical to food security. And that's exactly why we're building autonomous drones. We work with industries such as control environment agriculture. So that includes greenhouses, indoor vertical farms. And we also work with the seeds industry. And our core technology is in 2 main pillars. One is automation of micro drones in indoor environments. And the second is computer vision, which enables this automation and helps digitalize growing, generally speaking. So that's a quick introduction on the company. A bit on the personal side. Before starting Polybee, I was an associate scientist at Temasek Laboratories in the National University of Singapore. And through a string of serendipitous events, I ended up founding the company. Initially, I had plans to go for a PhD in the States, but I guess along the panel, I'll be happy to share more on how all of this happened. So all in all, delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Siddharth. And as I've got you at the moment, I'll lead on to my next question, which I'm going to open up to the panel to discuss. But I remember when I was raising the fund and I was talking to people about deep tech, a question I got a lot from people, well, what is deep tech? Because everybody talks about having machine learning and using big data. So what would your definition be? We're going to do a whole talk now about, deep tech. How do you define, how do you differentiate it? Is it by industries? Is it by technology? Is it by skill set? How would you actually define deep tech?
I guess I'll jump in first.
That's for you, Jadhav.
Yeah, sure. So I think, Michael, that was actually a pretty neat start wherein you categorize these 3, aspects of deep tech. So maybe we can just look at them one by one, and I'll just share what I've observed personally. So I think number one is, of course, the technology part of it. Deep tech startups share this commonality, which is that at the foundation there's a proprietary technology which is based on a recent scientific discovery or a technological development, and it's very likely to emerge from pretty, I'd say, deep research coming out of universities or research institutions. I think the second aspect of markets is that deep tech startups tend to tackle the biggest and the most challenging of the problems. So by nature, the markets are massive in size, and the risk is largely involved in the development of the technology. So the question is not whether this will make enough money, but the question is, will this technology even work in the first place? So I think that's something that deep tech startups tend to share in terms of the technology and the market. And the other bit is, when you speak of talent, is that indeed, because of this very, let's say, fundamental characteristic of deep tech startups, which is, having proprietary technology based on research, founders tend to be from an academic background. Either they're fresh PhD graduates, researchers who've been in the field for a while. And that also implies that the early stage team is having a very highly specialized skill set. So I think those are the themes which are pretty common across deep tech companies. And another aspect, I think, is that the markets tend to be geography agnostic. So, even if you're a deep tech startup based in Southeast Asia or the States or Europe, typically, at the end of the day, when your solution pans out in a few years, your customers are going to be all over the world. And that's because of the fact that you're tackling a problem which is so important to all of mankind. So these tend to be in sectors like healthcare, automation of age-old industries such as agriculture, and many other sectors as well, which are I'd say yearning for these transformations. So yeah, those are my kind of takes on what deep tech startups share at their foundation.
Thank you, very good for that. I wish I'd had that answer when I was talking to my investors. Irene, do you have anything to add to that?
I think
go ahead.
I think answer all of the question.
I mean, Irene, do you have anything to add? That was quite a
so I would say for us, and that was a perfect answer. I'm going to take that down and make that into writing and use that as our tagline. But I think for us at the university, one of the simplest ways for us to communicate what deep tech is also that technology barrier to entry. And for us, it's really important that these are defensible businesses because of the intellectual property. And I think all the stuff that Siddharth has said, spot on. They tend to be disruptive because they've come from years of research. It's not something that regular Joe can jump off the street and go, yeah, I'll do that. It's something that comes from deep scientific insight, and it tends to solve really, really big problems that nobody else wants to solve. Yeah, I would add to that. Yeah, but perfect answer. Thank you.
Yeah, no. So Irene, as I've got you on now, and I guess building on that, we're talking about building a deep tech community.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can be done overnight. It takes a long time when you're building a community, especially something around this. It takes a long time to do. To what extent? What do you believe are the core pillars of actually building a tech community so that it can be successful over the long term?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. I think it's something that we're working on in Singapore right now. I think in Singapore we do have a lot of the good starting blocks, right? So you talk about the talent, and you talk about the money. A lot of people tend to look at those two and go, boom! If I put them together in a chemistry jar, an explosion to happen and a business should happen. What we've found is that when you have talent and that comes with technology, and then you have the money, it's also about the experience. What we lack in Singapore is the more experienced founders. We found that many of our founders tend to be younger founders, and they flounder a lot more than maybe someone who's been more experienced, and also that connectivity to the rest of the world. So I encourage all the startups that come through my accelerator programs that when you start a company, you start a global company. You may start a company in Singapore first, but your sites always have to be markets outside because Singapore is too small. So for us, I think the founding bits would be the talent, which we do have, the technology, the money, but I would add the experience of a more seasoned business mentors that would come into the mix. So we found that those combinations make for much better starts to deep tech companies.
Thank you. Alwy, can I throw that over to you? And do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, I have several points. Number one is we must set our goals, the community goals. So the community can take many forms, and some can be used to exchange knowledge and the best practice. So other way to drive the change or embrace the patient. So we must connect what the community aim to, and the first step and the next step, and then until its growth. And then the second point, so we must know our audience. So it is based on the deep tech audience, right? So it's a good idea to do some research to the target audience first, and then before we launch the community, because sometimes the community don't have a good direction, yeah. And then we want to go to the deep tech, but the real is another things of technology. And then we must uncover the people patient. So it is very important to the people who going to community to uncover their patient, because of the person who don't have a patient, they will left the community easily, right? And then we must unite the community itself. So sometimes we need to make a sum of event to the community itself, so the people in the community will be engaged so good in the community. And then we must keep the experimenting like that. So we must involve so many experience. So the audience is changed every day, every weeks. So the regular view will tell you if you remember desire of the needs of the change, and we must go through to that, and then don't do it alone. In Yogyakarta, maybe just Block 71 is a very good example. It's a community based on the company, and then support from others incubator like NUS Innovative Academy or something. It's very good. That's all.
Okay, so asking a question, kind of leading on to something that Irene said and has been mentioned a couple of times. Money is always important in starting up a company. And one of the things that I've noticed is that one of the reasons we set up Cocoon Capital is because I was finding some really interesting deep tech companies to invest in at the early stage. But outside of government grants, there wasn't many investors who were interested in investing in this space. So how, you know, so, and I both for Alwy, for yourself, and also Siddharth, I believe that you've both raised funding. What were the issues that you came across when you were talking to investors, and how did you overcome them? And where do you see that the funding, do you believe there is a funding restriction within the ecosystem here, or do you think actually there is enough funds available to support the companies that are being built? Alwy, as I've got with you, I'll start with yourself and then move over to Siddharth.
Check. Sorry. Who is the first? Me?
Yeah, yourself first. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The connection is Okay. So investor looks deep technology. First is the funding. So we know that the technology is very hard to build, and then it takes time. It's time so many time, and then it must be very hard to get the deep technology. So since day one, I think deep startup require more capital than general tech startup for me. Yeah. And then, but the funding poses one of the top challenge to the commercialization, because of in Indonesia, artificial intelligence or deep technology is not common. So when we are already built our engine, our deep technology engine, and then we try to market it, so many companies in Indonesia don't understand what is the technology, the benefit of the technology. So it is very hard to make sure the venture capital Indonesia to invest in deep technology. I think in Indonesia, maybe 10 out of 1,000 venture capital focus in deep technology. So it's just a 1%, because of it takes a lot of money to invest in deep technology, and it requires maybe more than 5 to 10 years to get back the money. But in the next 5 or 10 years, I think in Indonesia, it will be very common investor who will invest in deep technology. Okay, that's for me.
Thank you for that. Siddharth, you know, I believe you've raised funding and had to go through that, the joyous process. What were the questions that you were asked? Do you agree with Alwy in terms of the lack of funding available? And, you know, what do you believe needs to happen to build a supportive community going forward in deep tech?
Sure. So first up, Michael, what I want to share is, you know, Polybee's journey in fundraising, and the fact that it is, you know, fairly anomalous. It's not very usual because, you know, in the early stages, we benefited from the NUS ecosystem. We got early stage grants and pre-seed investment. And on the top of that, we raised more grants, a more significant sum perhaps, which was sort of our first fund. So as such, you know, I mean, I think during this process, you know, I had a very existential question about, you know, raising VC funds for early stage deep tech ventures. And I think there are certain things which are fundamentally, I wouldn't say misaligned, but don't exactly converge either, which is, two things. One is the time to market, and secondly, the technological risk that is involved. I think this is where conversations get tricky. Well, I have to be very honest, I haven't had rigorous, due diligence yet, because since we ended up raising from the Temasek Foundation, their stance was a bit nuanced and different as opposed to a typical VC, firm. I think what it came down to for me was, these two things. If there is an alignment which is possible along, these early stage challenges largely related to time to market and how are you going to de-risk the technology, then I think there is opportunity to work with VC firms. And I think there are certain VC companies who I've spoken to but not raised from, who are willing to take that risk. And the reason was that they had a very strong thesis on the market, right? So I think that's something that came across. Maybe they typically wouldn't invest in companies which are, let's say, very heavy on the technological development in the first 2 years of the runway. But if they have a very strong thesis on the market, let's say if there's a VC firm which is saying that, okay, based on the kind of LPs that we have in this fund, they're very strategic on ag tech, we're going to try this out, even though we don't conventionally invest in these kind of companies. So that is, I think, a possibility which allows deep tech ventures to work with VC in the early stages. But I frankly do not have a very clear consensus for myself yet, if this is the best way to do it. I think it comes down to individual conversations and the alignment with the VCs. But all in all, our journey has largely been a bit different. Like I said, we've raised grants and we are extremely grateful to our backers. But it will come to a time where we'll have to have these conversations with VC firms.
Michael, do you mind if I just chip in and add to that?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so I would agree. Siddharth has had a very different experience. The funding that he was able to raise from the foundation is going to keep him going for a little while. And I would say in general, Singapore is anomalous. The level of government support that we have is tremendous. And beyond the government, I think all these quasi-government groups like Temasek are able to step in very significantly. So I think for Singapore and the companies that are based here, you'll find that there really maybe isn't that need for the pre-seed get involved with VCs just as yet. But this is very anomalous to Singapore. One thing we have observed though is for the companies that are raising Series A and thereafter, the funding is limited. And the tendency is for more typical venture capitalists that are comfortable with more financials. There isn't enough data and there is a mismatch in terms of timing. The need to get out in 3 to 5 years. Is my sound okay? I'm getting a bit of a backlash from my sound.
No, I hear you very clearly. Clearly.
Yeah, so I think we're trying to currently work with some of the government groups, and I know that for example, at the Singapore government, Enterprise Singapore has been very focused on bringing in sector-specific accelerator and funding groups so that we can bring these LPs that are more interested in a particular sector, and then we can fund more extensively, but also at an earlier stage. So I think it's a pain that we're feeling all around. And then also just to share, there's another government group, the Economic Development Board, together with our monetary MAS. What do they stand for? MAS is Monetary Authorities. Thank you. So what they're doing is they've put together a platform to bring together family offices. The feedback that they're getting from family offices is they want to get involved, but they're not confident. They don't have the experience. And so what they're putting together through this platform is a way to get people more familiar with early stage deep tech investing. And then once they've done it a couple times and they start to know the ecosystem a little bit better beyond Singapore, so regional, then they're going to start to do more of that. So that is ongoing. I think we're going to hear some news in the early part of 2021 about that.
I guess just coming in on from the VC point of view, I think I see this quite a lot, and time to market has been, when we talk about to a lot of my compatriots who, I go and talk to about investing in deep tech companies, either alongside us or after us, there is a big fear is, where is the revenue? Quite often with a lot of these companies when we talk about deep tech, and especially like med tech or robotics, it can be, you can be talking 3-4 years of funding before you see any money actually coming back. And it's very fearful for investors to be putting more money in and not seeing any real kind of commercial progress. So that's one of the feedbacks. And I think the other one is, if you look at who is running VCs, most of them do not even come from a tech background. I myself am not a technologist, but luckily my co-founder, Will Klipkin, was studying robotics and everything else back in Silicon Valley during the 90s, and has kept up to date with the technology. So, the problem is when you're talking to investors, if they don't even understand what you're trying to do or how it's different, I think that is going to cause them to kind of steer away from investing. And I think the last thing that I would add to it is, I know how successful investing in deep tech companies are because I've had a number of successes over the years. The problem is, I think even within Singapore, there have been a number of successes within, deep tech, but it's not celebrated enough. And I'm always of the firm belief that success breeds success. So I think we need to talk more about what within the community to bring talent here, but also let's be brutally honest about the investor world. If they can see you make money, they're going to invest in it. Most of the time, they don't want to be the leaders of the pack. They want to see success first. So I think if we're talking about building a community, I think what we need to have is we need to get some successes, which we can then actually celebrate and actually show that it can be done from scratch across the region. So just giving my I know I'm moderating, so I shouldn't say that much, but I think it's an important part.
I completely agree. I think this idea of success, showing success and having role models and showing that it can be done, it makes people more comfortable that, hey, if they're doing it, why can't I? And I also agree with you that in Singapore, we do not lack money. We lack lead investors. And my encouragement to all the government groups that are, trying their darndest to build the community is to say, when you bring people in, don't bring follow money, bring lead investor money, people who are willing to say, I really believe in this, I'm going to do the duty on this, I'm going to lead on this, and are you in? And hopefully they're doing that now. I'm seeing more and more of that happening in the community, so it's a good sign. But I agree with you completely.
So Irene, what I'm following up on that, obviously NUS, Siddharth right at the beginning gave us a very good description of what deep tech is, and one of the pillars that he talked about was talent. Obviously, being part of NUS, and I think I figured out that the other two on the panel actually came through NUS. So it shows that NUS is working in terms of building talent. Where do you see how can, not just outside of, and not just NUS, but in terms of, this is for Southeast Asia, how can we build on the talent that we've got? How can we attract talent? What are the things that people, that the community can do to build the talent pool here, especially in locally, and not rely purely on people coming from MIT and more of the international schools?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, for us, the ability to move between markets is critical. And that's why we have the setup at Block 71. We have, 7 locations now. We're based in US, China, Indonesia, Vietnam, Japan. So for us, this ability for talent to go between locations and markets is critical. So to your question about developing talent, a lot of it for us is not just about the academics. The university is pushing really hard on experiential education. We're finding that there's nothing better than doing and learning through doing. And we know that there are lots of universities and lots of places where you can learn how to be an entrepreneur. But until you're in it and you're doing it, you never really quite know. So for us, what we're advocating is that firstly, a two-way door between all the markets that we have access to. And I'm really delighted that RCEP was just signed a couple days ago, because now we have a trading bloc of 15 countries, all of ASEAN plus the large Asia countries. And now the doors are open, the tariffs are reduced. And I think that helps movement of people as well. So for us, we have many programs, the NUS Overseas College Program. We send undergraduates overseas to 14 locations now, and they intern at a startup company. And then they come back, and we've found that many of them end up starting their own companies. So this whole idea of learning by doing, I think, is a great way to get people to start to think about being an entrepreneur. So there are a couple other programs that we have. We've just launched a venture building program together with Enterprise Singapore, where we're encouraging, just people off the street to say, if you've always harbored this desire to be an entrepreneur, but you feel kind of, I'm not so sure, I don't really know what to do. NUS is now offering through ESG a paid 3-month experiential program for you to learn how to be an entrepreneur and practice it, and then decide whether or not you want to do it. So I think for us, talent is like the raw computing power of your brain, but also the experience of having done something before. So right now, one of the key programs that we're pushing really hard, and the one that Siddharth came through, called the Graduate Research Innovation Program, GRIP. It does exactly that. We take really smart cookies like Siddharth, we pull them out of the lab, and we say, why don't you give it a go? It's a 12-month accelerated program. The first 3 months is a venture hothouse. We squidge them, and then after 3 months, we figure whether or not they can be startup companies. So again, going back to the experiential education portion. So that's been our experience, at least. And we want to be working with our friends in Indonesia, our friends in Thailand, our friends in Vietnam to do exactly the same for their communities.
Thank you very much. Siddharth, your name was thrown out there, so I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. A follow-up question on this. You've raised money through Temasek, and obviously yourself, you've come from a tech background. But in terms of building a team around you to take the company to the next level and develop the product further, how have you actually done that? And Alwy, I'll be coming with you with the same question as well, being based in Indonesia. Are you finding the talent locally? Are you having to go further afield? And what are the main hurdles that you're facing in terms of bringing talent on board? Because as Irene rightly said, it's a global talent pool that you're going after. And obviously there are more glamorous locations that people can go to than Southeast Asia. So how have you actually gone around actually attracting and building that talent pool for yourself? So I'll start off with Siddharth and go to Alwy.
Yeah, I think I think having a deep tech startup is a bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to talent. On the one hand, you're looking for a very specialized skill set. So by the nature of it, there's very few people who have that, especially in a place like, I would say Singapore is still, a great spot to start because at least we have great universities here. But that's, globally, it's always going to be few and far apart. So that's one challenge. But on the other hand, just if you look at the very nature of deep tech companies, right, like we discussed, is that, the problem that they're addressing is just massive. It's hard, it's challenging. And I'd like to quote Sam Altman here, the ex-president of Y Combinator. He said that in many ways, it's easier to start a hard company than an easy company. It might sound paradoxical, but in some sense, because you're working on such a hard, ambitious problem, it will also invoke the curiosity of those who are very ambitious themselves and really care about working on something meaningful. So that serves as a sort of a self-selecting mechanism wherein, sure, on the one hand, you have a sort of a shortage of the talent pool just because the skill set is very specialized. But on the other hand, whoever there is, the ones you'll attract are the ones who are very aligned to what you want to do, which is solve very hard, challenging problems in the long term. So that's my general take on how I view hiring and accessing talent in the early stages. As for how I've gone about it myself, so I think it was slightly more challenging initially for me because I'm a solo founder, and in that sense, a lot of stuff had to be done by myself initially. But I quickly realized I need more help. So being in the NUS ecosystem was helpful, because it was easy to just look up folks who are working on these kind of problem statements within the university. So that's how we got our first hire after raising funds. And then after that, it started snowballing slowly. And I would also like to bring up the fact that Polybee is a huge beneficiary of SG Innovate's talent programs. Be it through internships or through even sort of full-time hires as well. So we've had interns over the past few months who are absolutely exceptional, who would get as much done as we would expect from a full-time staff. And with their global footprint, it's almost irrelevant where the company is based, because their network is just spectacular. So we've been able to interview students from MIT, Stanford. It's kind of amazing, right? That the company is just about a year old, and here we are talking to talents from the best universities in the world. However, there were issues because of COVID-19, and they didn't end up joining us, and we nevertheless found fantastic interns in Singapore. But I'm just trying to state an example of how SG Innovate has really enabled young companies such as ours to sort of have access, and it's almost irrelevant how old we are and where we are located.
Yeah. The reason I'm smiling is we got through. I'll let you answer. It's got one quick follow-up question for Siddharth, and then Alwy, I'll pass over to you. I was just smiling. We got through 40 minutes of the panel without talking about COVID. But I want to just a follow-up question what you said, because it is very relevant. I know for a number of our kind of what I would call deep tech portfolio companies, one of the things COVID has done is make the acceptance of remote working much more acceptable than it has been in the past. Do you see this as something that could actually really support the growth of the community and the ecosystem in Southeast Asia if you're not reliant? And do you see this as something that is really going to be of a benefit long term for the community?
I think that's a great question, and largely on a high level, I would say yes. Through COVID, what I have personally realized through experience is that you can, despite of being a deep tech company and being, let's say, largely speaking, a robotics company, we have been able to engage some of our engineers remotely, and in fact, they've done a fantastic job at making good progress in the past few months. Before COVID, I would have been very skeptical. How the hell are we going to make all of these things work when there's someone who's not even here with us? But we have been able to do that just because circumstances didn't allow us to get them on site. So we did hire one of our key engineers here. His name is Siddharth. He's based in India, and he's been making massive contributions to our autonomous stack. The way we adjusted was that let's abstract those problem statements which can be done through simulations on a software level, and let's get started there. We have to meander around and find these kind of I'd say smaller projects that can be done remotely. But how it helps deep tech companies is that you move fast, basically, right? There's a lot of talent in the region, and especially in the context of COVID, despite of proximity, they may not be able to join you anytime soon, but it is still possible, to keep the progress on.
Thank you very much for that. So are we kind of following on from that? I believe you're based in Indonesia. So how have you found talent there, and what do you see within Indonesia? What are the hurdles that you're facing, and how are you overcoming them?
Okay, so it is very different in Indonesia and Singapore, I think, because Indonesia is very local. Yeah, Indonesia is very local, and Singapore is very global. So I remember in early days, we don't have a financial resource to offer the big paycheck to our employee. And in order to convince top talent come and work for me, so we need to build a company with the create a mission and vision, so that excited them to join us. So as a founder, we must able to share our long-term projection, vision, mission, so to our potential first employee, and present our company in the best way. So I have a quote from Steve Jobs early. He said to John Scully, John Scully, and he said that, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? It means Pepsi. Or do you want to join me and change the world? So that inspired me the most. And then when I try to attract the good talent, good people, I always say to them like that, yeah, in Indonesia way. And then for me, I must hire my fans. Hiring fans means hiring people who take ownership with our company in the long term. So it's very important to have a creative word mouth marketing. So I always posting in my Instagram, in my social media, so it will make a like a power. So people understand that Alwy is a good people. He has a very good company in Indonesia. So the best talent in Indonesia will come to us and joining us. It is very hard in Indonesia to say to Indonesia people who like going to the MIT or Harvard or something, because they have their own pride, so big pride. They don't want to come back to Indonesia because of Indonesia has a very different ecosystem. But it's like Indonesia people looks like America is a high-tech country. Also, Singapore is better than Indonesia or something. So when we are very small startups, so we must gather the best talent in Indonesia itself. It's very hard to get to the another country, or maybe people, Indonesia people who school in the MIT or Harvard or something like that, because it is Indonesia startup. It's different.
Oh, sorry, Irene, you go ahead.
I was just going to add and tell Alwy that our experience working with engineers from Jogja has been phenomenal. So we have two startup companies, Lexicat and Music Pro, also from the GRIP program, that have gone to Indonesia through the Block 71 connections. And they now have teams based in Block 71, based in Jogja. And they are such high quality engineers. And, we are just blown away. So I really salute you for gathering all these like-minded, kindred spirits to be part of your start, and be proud to be Indonesian. And this, just to add on that, we're trying to do the same in Singapore. We also look west and go, oh, American, UK, Europe. There is still a little bit of that. And nowadays, we don't hear so much from the government saying, why can't you be an MIT? And now our response is, because I don't want to be an MIT. I want to be a Singapore-based fill in the blank. I don't want to be Singapore proud. And I think similarly, for you guys, it sounds like what you're doing is you want to be Indonesia proud. And just to share, we've had such a phenomenal experience working with your engineers in Jogja. Very, very, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. So I guess a question for both of you then is, when we talk about deep tech, and so when Siddharth was giving his very good analogy of what deep tech is, obviously it's cutting edge technology. So technology is changing on a rapid basis. How is our education systems, and not just in Singapore but in Indonesia, talent is going to come from the youth coming up through the system. Do you see there is a way to actually or suggestion in terms of how we can actually improve the talent, or is there enough talent, or is there enough focus from the universities on building out this talent? Because talking to Irene, you mentioned spin outs, and a lot of if it doesn't matter where you go in the world, a lot of our great technology companies, it's come out through research that has been done at universities. And the Brits, I'm English, to be quite honest, they're a disaster when it comes to spin outs on the whole. So I guess two questions is one, in terms of talent coming out of our education system. And I guess the second question is in regards to spinning out a lot of the research that is being developed. I think that's an important part of building an ecosystem. Is it being done well? How can it be improved? Irene, do you want to start with that, please?
Yeah, so I won't talk so much about talent anymore because we spoke about that just now and how for us it's about experiential education. But I think going to this thing about commercializing technology, we struggle with it, to be honest. The university is kind of a funky place because the researchers that do what they do, they don't do it because there's commercial potential. They do it because it's interesting, it's curiosity driven. And so all the time in all universities, you'll have solutions looking for problems all the time. Then our challenge as a tech transfer office is to identify the ones that have commercialization legs. So, talking about can we do it better? Absolutely. Can we do it differently? One of the things that we're launching early next year, is this program called the Technology Access Program. And the reason we're doing this is because we have more intellectual property than we know what to do with. And we can't convince, people like Siddharth and other researchers for all of them to start leaving the labs. So what we're going to do is to have another program, another sort of quasi-accelerator program, where we are inviting people from all over the region. It's very ASEAN specific. And because of our locations all over ASEAN, we are encouraging people who are in current large corporations that want to access very interesting technologies and be part of experiencing taking that out to join this technology access program. So that's one way that we're doing it a little bit differently, to say, we don't know what this technology can do, but you're from the marketplace and clearly you're in a large corporate right now. And you see problems from your industry. So why don't you come to the university, 3 months, but sort of staggered over time. You don't have to spend 3 months with us, and then come and play and tinker. We'll open our labs to you. We'll open our researchers to you. And then at the end of the 3 months, if you like what you see and you want to take it out, then license it. And, we're very happy about that. So I think technology commercialization tends to be in a very traditional way, just licensed to existing companies. At NUS, we've been very overt in that we want to hatch as many startups as possible. We know many of them will fail, but that's okay. It's a way of advancing the technology, and then hopefully someone will pick it up. And then the latest thing that we're introducing is opening up all of our IP reservoir and saying, if you want to come, take a look, have fun with it, tinker with it. After 3 months, if you like it, you can take it. But if not, at least you've learned how to be an entrepreneur by experiencing it. So that's what we're doing for technology commercialization.
Thank you. Alwy, do you have anything that you would like to add to that? Alwy? Oh, I think we might have lost him. Okay.
So sorry, my connection is unstable. So maybe Siddharth can go first.
Okay.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, I think we might be having technical issues. So I'm just aware of the time. We're coming to the end. So what would be fantastic is if each of the panelists could say one comment in terms of where they see, what they believe, where we could improve the community in the deep tech community in the region, and what they see as the kind of health of the community that we've got here. So Siddharth, if I could pass it on to you first, please.
Yeah, sure. I don't have a particularly deep insight on this yet, because half the time I'm busy being grateful for being a part of this community in Singapore in the first place, having benefited from it at every single level. I mean, I'm not just saying this because Irene is here, but I'm never shy of admitting that Polybee would not exist without NUS. And this is right from the early days, wherein I was just like I said, a researcher, and I didn't even have ambitions to start a company. But because I went through these programs is where I was able to explore, and a lot of these steps were significantly de-risked by NUS, is why I'm here in the first place. So yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm just immensely grateful. But just maybe another point to add to communities in deep tech is I would say I would, kind of delineate it along 3 lines when it comes to the community. One is the talent community, which is basically, engineers and scientists aspiring to work at these companies. Second is founders themselves. I guess they share some common problems amongst themselves. And then, there's government institutions, or universities for that matter, who are trying to create these ecosystems. And then, of course, to add to that, investors as well. I think, like I said before, briefly, one, I think, interesting question that probably we should often talk about more often, or at least have dialogue on, is the mechanisms for investments after these, let's say, initial grants or pre-seed investments. How best can we reconcile the challenges of how we see funding works in the early stages versus the challenges that are faced by deep tech companies. I think as of now, from the conversation that I've had so far, it's very, very contextual. It really depends on which VCs are really, let's say, heavy on that particular market. But I think this is a really an existential question to really deeply think about. What are the best mechanisms for investments at the very early stage in deep tech? And I think I don't really have any good answer to that, but it's something to think about.
Excellent, thank you very much. Irene, over to you.
I would say just in terms of the last couple of things, our observation has been that market access has been a huge challenge for startups, and especially for the ones coming out of Singapore. So what I really hope that the community can do, and I think you had also talked about a global community. I'm looking more smaller footprint, ASEAN community. How do these gateways exist for talent and for money and for market access? So that's why we have the likes of Block 71, because at the university, we deeply feel that these gateways and portals are critical to allow the talent, the money, and the companies to go back and forth. Interestingly, I would say in the last 2 years, we've been getting a lot more interest from the West to access the East. I think previously we didn't see as much of that. I think the intensity of interest for Southeast Asia has really ramped up in the last 3 to 5 years. And we expect to see even more of that. So Siddharth, going back to your point about, MIT people wanting to come here, Stanford people, Berkeley people want to come here, it's because they see the potential of Southeast Asia and Asia in general. And I think we'll see the force coming this way. So my hope is that the community will continue to want to look for these portals of connection between governments, between existing communities that are deep tech centric, so that talent, money, and companies and market access can exist. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Irene. Alwy, yourself, any final thoughts?
Hello, okay, thank you. So before we have very big teams, a big company, and then maybe good work environment. But before we can reach that point, so we require support from a community of experts and enthusiasts in order to continuously innovative and keep up the changing times. So I think being part of a dynamic community allows us to have an opportunity and immerse of the changing business language in the 21st century, connect with the network with the passionate individuals, and be a driving force for the changing of the itself in the region. Whether you are a startup founder, maybe an investor, or a corporate apps developer, maybe a student, or there's much learn about to joining the startup community, I think, and we can have a good time in the startup community. But in Indonesia, I think the main problem is we can keep going to change this. The access to the talent pool is very hard when we are not joining the community. So it is very good when the community can access to the best talent in the university of in Indonesia, like that. I think most community in Indonesia doesn't have access to Indonesia university, best university. Indonesia is the labor is not too high salary. So I think Block 71, I hope you can connect to more university so we can get the more talent, good talent pool.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just aware of the time. We pretty much finishing bang on time, which is a very rare thing for me to actually do. I normally massively overrun. I'm aware that there are a number of questions for either all the panelists or for an individual panelist to answer. I don't know, but for those that have asked questions, I will answer the ones that I can, and Alwy and Irene and Siddharth, if you're okay, if you wouldn't mind, if you get a chance afterwards, just dropping messages to the people that have asked the questions, because we don't have any time, and I don't want to kind of overrun if necessary. But I appreciate the questions, and I want to say a big thank you to the panelists. It's been a really insightful and thoughtful discussion. I've learned a lot myself. And so I'm sure the audience are very appreciative of you taking the time to talk to them and answer my questions. So thank you all very, very much.
It's been a pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. So, Nikki, I think I'm handing over to you now. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Michael.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what such a great session. It's really insightful. Even for me, I learned a lot, especially about the deep tech, right? And I've hopefully a big hope that Indonesia, not only Indonesia, but the whole Asian, it will be prepared and will be ready for the name of the deep tech community, right? So hopefully also it will be bring us a lot of a new great future in the head and have a great life over into the future. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much to all the panelists for the great and insightful session. Before I end this morning panel session, let me remind you to all the participants of innoXjogja, please to check out again the innoXjogja platforms. You can check the virtual booth, have a networking again with all the participants. It's not only startups, but we have incubators, we have VCs, we have corporates. Check them out and make the meetings and meet them up, and hopefully you have a great collaboration and of course networks over into the future. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back again for our next session at 2 o'clock of Jakarta time with the panel discussion about planting the seeds for a local regional farming ecosystem, and will be moderated by our beloved Hub Manager of Innovation Factory in Block 71 Jakarta, Widya Sukarta, with our panel, Aryo Wirawan, the CEO of Inmira, Wilda Romadona, the head of Arrego Pantes 8 Villages, and also Daryl Lim, the co-founder of Augmentis. And remember again, it's 2:30 p.m. of Jakarta time. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for your participation. Don't forget to stay healthy and stay safe. And I'll see you again at 2:30 o'clock. Thank you very much. I'm Iki. I'm signing out.